What's up, guys? Welcome to the Sully Podcast. I am your host, Deshaun Sullivan. Today, we usually here on the Sully Podcast, we usually talk about human trafficking and different topics. But today, specifically, we are going to again have our second episode about the Palestine conflict, and we're also going to bring up the Congo, Sudan, Armenia, and things like this. So you can also find us at the Sully Podcast at the Sully Podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. All those at the Sully Podcast. On Facebook, we are at Real Sully Podcast, as well as the website. You can find the website at www.realsupersully.com. There we sell a variety of different products, specifically towards prayer. A lot of that is actually the proceeds are actually going to those different conflicts and directly towards the people and no NGO. So today, within the next 10 minutes, we're going to speak about, again, the Zionist occupation, really throughout the world, but especially in Palestine and how that affects the Congo, Sudan, and Armenia. So today, first I want to really speak about and hit on the black magic, or sihir. In Islam, we call it sihir. That does go on, and I really want a lot of people, to focus on that. Judaism and black magic, those are two entirely different things, but there was, during the time of Solomon, during his reign, during his kingdom, actually, he had control. At least this is the belief in Islam, that he had control over a lot of what we call the jinn. They are amongst us as well as humans. They go to heaven and hell just like us at the end, in their afterlife, and some are good and some are evil, some are bad. And he had control over these jinn. What people did during that time is that they learned the different secrets of how to use and utilize the jinn and utilize magic, but it only came as a test. It came as a test so that these people would know that they would have no bearings in the hereafter. They would not enter into heaven in the afterlife. If they claimed they wanted to do this black magic and they wanted to utilize that in this life to have their heaven on earth. You can't have it both ways. I say this to say that, one of my good friends, he had explained to me, he had called to me and explained to me, why does one, and this is not against white people at all, but why does one white man have control over the entire Middle East? And how is that even possible for one person to control? Honestly, really, he kind of controls the world because only a few groups have actually entered in a conflict with him. It's really crazy for the average non-believing person to kind of, think about the utilization of magic and religion, especially in war, but it is a thing. For example, Haiti, during the Haitian Revolution, when they were getting out of their colonization from the British and the Americans, they used, it's documented, they used voodoo actually to get out of their own colonization. Now, granted, later on, they did have repercussions because of that. And obviously not every Haitian is going to hell. That's a crazy saying, but that was a tactic that was used during the 1930s and Nazi occupation in Germany. It's also well documented that Hitler used the occult to actually gain power, and he did so within, I think he gained power within 40 days or so. Granted, he wasn't to a political politician, seats before then, but the rapid advancement of his career. was all due to the occult and science and magic. So how does that stem into today's society? The Congo, an entire country that was once plagued by King Leopold and his old genocides as well, cutting off the hands and the feet of the Africans there that had to work for so long to not get their hands cut off. They had to produce a quota to not get their hands cut off. They're under a second colonization period to produce cobalt. And if they don't produce the cobalt, they will be killed. There have been over 20 million people killed in the Congo within the last, I want to say 25 years or so. It's absolutely crazy, and it gets virtually no coverage here in the US. Why? Because the US is a huge producer and consumer of solar panels, cell phones, electronics in general, TVs and things like this. In Sudan, that is also a very resource-rich country that Israel has their hands in as well, starting proxy wars with different countries, starting proxy wars, funding arms groups and things like that in the Sudan to dismantle the government over there. As well as Armenia, Israel is funding different arms groups in Armenia, the first Christian country, or one of the first Christian countries, let me take that back, in the world, which is very sacred. The people in the Israeli government does not like Christianity. They don't like Islam, obviously, because they do magic and things like this. They are funding arms groups to once again overthrow that government. Israel, they have the world's largest skin bank, which blacks and browns specifically have the most melanin content. Obviously, that kind of what makes us our skin pigments. Your skin pigment actually sells more than gold via the deep web and things like this. So organ transplants, all these different things, Israel's involved. They have rings of human trafficking rings, sex trafficking rings, child labor rings, child trafficking rings, all in Mexico, specifically Mexico, El Salvador, and South America in general. They have lots of puppet governments and puppets there to help their rule and, to pretty much make cheap labor to get the brown people from there and traffic, little kids' organs. It's weird, but a lot of rich people, they do involve themselves with organ harvesting and human trafficking, which is kind of crazy. Also, Israel, they do a lot of white phosphorus bombing of South Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. The only way that they're getting away with all this stuff is that they've got the whole world under a spell, under a hex. And it's kind of crazy, but that is the story. As the saying goes, the truth is stranger than fiction. Here's a very real life example of that. And again, for people that aren't religious, it may seem like a wild concept, but just think about, things like Halloween and how that even started, the concept of magic and how that is very real and how that can evolve into, whole governments utilizing that as an actual weapon. Has been around, for long periods of time, especially in the Americas when we had the Salem witch trials, things like that. There's so much that goes into religion. I am a very big advocate to use religion as a peaceful tool and not as a divisive, warmongering thing. I don't believe that anything good ever comes out of things that involve pretty much direct Satanism, again, because you would use this magic to kill off people, to take over countries, to harvest organs, to inflict child labor, to enact slavery. There's so much that goes into it. They're involved, they're in trouble with it. America's involved and in trouble with it. Lots of these different countries, Ukraine is involved and is in trouble with it. There's just so much that's going on. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode, though. I really hope that you guys took that into consideration, just to know like what's actually going on. This is the end of the second episode of the Palestinian conflict with the Sully Podcast. Again, you can find the Sully Podcast at the Sully Podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. And on Facebook, we are at Real Sully Podcast. Also, go to the website www.realsupersully.com, and there we have a lot of products specifically based on prayer that we are selling. A lot of the proceeds and profits are going towards the people in those various countries and not to any non-government organization. With that, I would like to end the Sully Podcast, and God bless. Have a great day.